And welcome to coverage of Grand Prix Richmond. Maria Bartholdi in the booth alongside Jacob Van Lunen, going to watch Joel Larson versus Alexander Hayne. Both players currently on 8 and 2. Joel playing a white-blue deck that we saw a little bit of last round as he sideboarded in some tech to try and deal with an approach of the second sun, but unfortunately got blown out by an invocation.
Yeah, it didn't work out too well for him that time. Both these guys are Pro Tour champions, actually.
Yes.
It's a nice title to have next to your name.
Yeah, how does it feel, JBL?
Yeah, it feels pretty good.
Alexander Hayne playing a blue-red deck and is going to start things off with the Top Crop Skirmisher. Nice little 2-drop.
Yeah, and it matches up really nicely against the Unwavering Initiate here, too.
Absolutely. As a cheaper embalm cost. There you get a look at it on your screen. It embalms for 4, while Unwavering Initiate embalms for 5.
Ooh, lots of colors here from Alex.
Oh, America. Okay. Curator of Mysteries hits the table for Joel Larson. A 4-4 for 4. No big deal.
Yeah, and the nice added little bonus of getting to scry whenever you cycle or discard a card is actually surprisingly relevant in this format. You're first picking it as a 4-4 for 4 anyway.
Yeah.
But
Alexander getting in there with the Skirmisher. Joel's like, I don't think I'm going to block that. Goes to 18. And follow-up play of a Sparring Mummy will untap that Skirmisher. Cycling and discarding happens quite a lot when you're playing blue, so Joel might scry quite a few times over the course of this game, and that gets more and more valuable as the game goes on. In comes a Curator of Mysteries for 4. Alexander will drop down to 16.
And even though the Unwavering Initiate has Vigilance, so it can kind of attack for free in most scenarios, here he definitely does not want to attack because the Skirmisher embalms for less mana, costs less mana to cast, and trades with the Unwavering Initiate.
The Skirmisher getting in for another 2, tying the score at 16.
You'll notice here, even though that Skirmisher is, it does a great job blocking Unwavering Initiate, Alex still is trying to race here. And I think that is a testament to the way the format plays out, that, you really need to induce these types of racing situations.
Here's an attempt to compulsory rest. It resolves. Joel's Curator of Mysteries currently taking a little snooze. He can sacrifice it at any time to gain 2 life, however, which sometimes is relevant.
Yeah, the other thing about compulsory rest that is kind of a detractor from how powerful a pacifism effect normally is in a limited format is that in this format you can often put -1/-1 counters on the creature that has the compulsory rest on it, or you can sacrifice it for some type of advantage. There are raised dead effects in this format that are playable. So
Joel is going to drop a Winged Shepherd, a 3/3 Vigilant Flyer, cycling for a single white.
I've been really unimpressed with that card, to be honest.
Why?
It's obviously playable, and it's going to make the cut in a lot of your white decks because it just cycles for 1 mana. But a 3/3 Flying Vigilance for 6 just is not what you're in the market for in this format. It doesn't match up well against even most of the 2-drops in the set. And
yeah, you can see that Sparring Mummy is a 3/3 as well for 4. Prepare to Lead, cast by Alex there. We'll give the mummy. Oh, Prepare to Fight. Sorry. We'll give that mummy +2/+2 and lifelink. Lifelink, man, in a format where there's so much racing, do you think it's more important than normal?
Absolutely, and I think that a card like Cartouche of Ambition might not be as powerful in a lot of other formats, but in this format, it's really, really valuable to have those types of effects at the ready.
Joel gets in there with his Winged Shepherd for 3. Alexander drops to 14. Joel on 15. Here we have a Floodwaters. Is going to return the Sparring Mummy and the Curator of Mysteries to Joel's hand, removing that compulsory rest.
That's a nice use of, a bounce spell.
Right.
We'll see that all the time on pacifism effects in a variety of formats. And this format actually comes up less often than normal. But there we see Yul taking advantage of that.
But Alex is going to keep applying the pressure here with a Skirmisher and a Sacred Cat, which he keeps attacking into creatures bigger. Then so it's like, when is Yul going to take the bait here or say, show me what you've got?
And that's the thing that's interesting about this format is that Alex already used a prepare fight.
Yeah.
So he's representing yet another trick, and Yul really has to eventually is probably going to have to block, and vigilance as a keyword on the Winged Shepherd is basically irrelevant.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, there was a impeccable timing on the Winged Shepherd.
Yeah, so that turns out to be the other trick that Alex had in hand. So Yul actually could have saved himself 2 damage if he did say "show me" when he blocked the Skirmisher on the turn before, if he had chosen to do so.
He's going to replay the Curator of Mysteries. Sacred Cat, just a 1/1 for 1 with lifelink, Embalm for white. Do you like this card?
There are decks where I do like it, and there are decks where I don't like it, which is true of a lot of cards in this format.
Ooh, Deem Worthy. They're one of our pack 1 pick ones. Taking down the Curator of Mysteries, Yul Larson will respond to that attack from Alexander with an impeccable timing of his own to take down the Sparring Mummy. Well, we'll take 3. Alex will go up to 17. Naga Oracle is a play for Yul. Going to look at the top 3, essentially sort of scrying these cards, can put them back on top in any order.
Yeah, it's nice. It's
graveyard.
kind of like scrying, but you can also toss Embalm creatures into your graveyard with it to create like a strange type of card advantage out of Naga Oracle. The really great part about Naga Oracle here is that it actually trumps Alex's board.
Yeah.
Alex has a 2-power creature and a 1-power creature, and that 2/4 body is going to be really relevant here, especially now that Alex has used 2 of his tricks. It's unlikely that he has another one in hand.
And he can't cast the fight part of Prepare to Fight, at least at this time, with no green mana. Well, a River Serpent certainly trumps a 2/4. 5/5 body that can attack because Alex has more than 5 cards in his graveyard.
That river must have like a lot of fish. It's surprising that it can support like life of that size. You know what I mean? That's
ancient crabs, river serpents. The fishing's good on Amonkhet.
Yeah.
That's why Angler Drake's around. He's a fishing bird.
Oh, that's true. He's a gigantic fishing creature.
Here we see an Embalm on Unwavering Initiate for Yul. River Serpent makes its way into some decks that it normally wouldn't because of the single blue cycling on the card.
Yeah, and that's the nice part about that card is you can kind of trade it in for a different card whenever you want. It's in the same vein as it's of a similar power level to Winged Shepherd. I actually like it a little bit better.
Yeah.
I think the 5/5 body is better than a 3/3 body. And oftentimes when you are blue, you're trying to play a more defensive strategy, and 5 toughness is kind of a magic number that gets above most of the exert common creatures.
What's interesting, too, is that there are creatures at common like Aven Initiate that has 3 power. So, and it's cheaper than Winged Shepherd.
Yeah.
And it has Embalm. So, easily blocked. Here's a Vizier of Many Faces for Alex. What do you think he's copying? Yeah, he's going to copy the River Serpent.
Well, it was countered by Essence Scattered there.
Oh, I see. Essence Scattered.
But the nice part about Vizier of Many Faces is that he gets to Embalm it again on the next turn, and that card's just absurdly powerful. I mean, it's the best creature on the battlefield twice. So
Yul lining up some blocks here as the River Serpent and the Skirmisher get in to the red zone. Looks like the True Heart Duelist is blocking the Skirmisher as well, as it's able to block up to 2 creatures. And we have a Ret Crop Spearmaster hitting the battlefield. A card that's impressed you.
Yeah, that card has overperformed for me quite a bit. I've been really impressed with Spearmaster. The Spearmaster is specifically the reason why I would rather have a River Serpent than a Winged Shepherd.
Yep. Makes sense. When you exert it, gets +1/+0 and first strike until end of turn. Blocked by a 5/5, turns out. And Yul has embalmed his True Heart Duelist as well.
Not the most impressive face here.
Oh, the Vizier is taking the face of the Naga Oracle to look at the top 3. A land is probably going into the graveyard at this point. I don't know. I'm not too excited to copy a 2/4.
Yeah, neither am I. Alex's deck may have a lot of embalm cards, however, so he might. Ooh, and he only puts 1 in the graveyard, so he's going to have action for a while now.
Yoel's going to get some action of his own here.
Yeah, Hieroglyphic Illumination. And that's another card that I've liked a lot, especially in these longer types of matchups.
Absolutely. It's so flexible. If you just need to draw 1 card, you can. If you want to draw 2, just cost 4. It's an instant.
Yeah, it's also a really nice way to fill your graveyard with spells early if you end up with Javelineers in your deck and things like that.
Another Unwavering Initiate is a play for Yoel. Here we have a look at Hieroglyphic Illumination. And there, one of our favorite 2-drops, Gust Walker, hits the table for Alex. We'll be able to exert it if he chooses to give it +1/+1 in flying. But Yoel says, no, thank you. I'm going to put a compulsory rest on your Gust Walker.
I'm going to say right here now, I think it's the best common 2-drop.
Yeah?
Yeah, as far as creatures go, I'm really into a Gust Walker.
Bold statement. I like it. Alex is going to pump his team here with a pretty impressive Trial of Solidarity, +2/+1, and Vigilance until end of turn.
Yeah, and so good with Exert creatures. This card has impressed me a lot.
That Ret Crop Spearmaster is going to be hitting pretty hard.
Yeah, with First Strike, too. So I'm going to demand a chump block here. And Yoel's life total is low enough where this kind of like bodes the end, and he knows that Alex set up another card on the top of his deck after this.
Right.
So, it may even be a cartouche. I wouldn't be surprised. And if that's the case, then Alex is going to have like another overrun effect for the following turn. And
Yeah,
that's just absurd.
we do see this mountain in Alex's deck, and I wouldn't be surprised if he was splashing for a red cartouche, even potentially just to bounce that trial.
Yeah, that red cartouche isn't necessarily a card you'd want to splash. It's kind of more of one of the more aggressive cards, and it's when you draw it at a lot of stages of the game. I think it's probably the weakest, would you say? But
Yeah, I would.
yeah.
Let's take a look at these deck lists here. See if we can find out what Alex has the mountain in his deck for.
I think it's just the Deemworthy that he already cast.
Oh, okay. Well, that makes
Yeah.
sense. Here is a fantastic card to play in a blue-white deck. Aven Wind Guide. 4 mana for 2/3 flying vigilance. Other creature tokens you control have flying and vigilance. And
Yeah.
Balm for 6.
And it makes all your bomb creatures jump in the air, which is pretty impressive.
Especially when you have a deck like Alex's here. Vizier of Many Faces, Talkrop Skirmisher.
Something that I found kind of funny about Aven Wind Guide, there Alex finally able to deliver the fatal blow. That trial was just too much on the penultimate turn there.
Smile from Yoel there. He's like, well, yeah, that was pretty good. They have a very similar decks, however.
Absolutely. Both of them are, like, these games are going to go longer. And in the long game, I think that they both have a lot of game here. So
It does
this should be
look
a good
like
match.
Yoel is main decking that Gideon's intervention that we saw in round 1.
Yeah, and that's an interesting card because, in a more aggressive deck, that's not a card you want to be playing. It turns something off that your opponent is trying to do offensively, but they can then use that card defensively, which, it's a rare. It looks like a more powerful effect if your opponent has, multiple copies of some card that they're attacking you with, and it gets really strong.
Right.
But when you're attacking your opponent, letting them use something as a blocker that you've used a card to deal with is not necessarily a winning proposition.
All right, we'll have more draft for you right after these messages. of Grand Prix Richmond, Maria Bartholdi in the booth alongside Jacob Van Lunen, Joel Larson versus Alexander Hayne. Both players currently standing at 8-2. Alex up a game over Joel. Kind of a mirror match situation here, both playing blue-white embalm flying decks. Let's take a look in here. Eric Severson versus Neil Oliver. Oh, it looks like they're just wrapping up there. Looks like Eric got that game. Both players 9-1. So not hoping for another loss, because going in at 10-1 is a great place to be. Potentially got yourself thinking about the top 8.
Yeah. And Neil's been playing a lot of this format. I've watched him play quite a bit. He streams online.
Yeah, if you ever get a chance to check out Neil's stream, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I enjoy it.
He's got like his face inside a big like fish mouth.
Angler.
Yeah, angler mouth.
Yeah.
I love when streamers do fun things like that.
Yeah.
Sometimes when our webcam isn't working when I'm streaming, I put up a picture I drew, which is really, really bad, of a sloth.
Nice.
Wearing a little T-shirt that says sloth on it. Which is
so
really
that you
bizarre.
know it's a sloth.
Yeah,
because it's unrecognizable as that type of animal because of the quality of drawing.
Yes,
perhaps.
my art skills, let's say they're lacking. They're lacking, even though I have a Bachelor of Arts degree, which would make you think that I could do some arts.
Yeah, but that's kind of like a broad definition of art.
I know, I just think that's so funny.
The arts.
I'm like, you have a Bachelor of Science? All right, get in the lab and make me a potion, science man.
I like referring to them as potions.
Yeah, not just cure a disease. No, make me a potion.
Make me a potion.
Something interesting about Yoel's deck here is he has 3 copies of Unwavering Initiate, is playing them all.
Yeah, I would too. I mean, it's a very, very solid 3. And the nice part about that is it gives you something to do with your mana later. It trades with, a 3/2 is a really interesting card. It doesn't necessarily match up against a card like Tekrop's Skirmisher, like Alex has, but it actually matches up really well against most of the 4-drops in the format.
Yeah.
And the fact that you can attack with it and then also threaten to block something like a Quarry Hauler, it's really good against green decks, and it's just a great card that, it's one of the cards that encourages trading in a format that often is about trading blows instead of trading cards.
Here we have Yoel kicking things off with a Fan Bear. We'll be able to tap down some of Alex's creatures later in the game. For now, we'll just get in there for 1. Followed up by a Vizier of Remedies, which is not going to be at its best here in this matchup. But what it will do is, if you get a -1/-1 counter on one of your creatures, you get that many -1 instead.
Yeah.
Which is a little bit of a mouthful, but prevents a counter, essentially. It's going to attack into Alex's Binding Mummy. I think he would be quite happy with this trade. We also know Yoel is playing 2 copies of Impeccable Timing as well. Alex takes the trade. Yoel follows it up with an Anointer Priest, which, if you're doing a lot of embalming, can gain you 3 or 4 life over the course of a game.
Yeah, it can gain you quite a bit of life if you have cards like Catcher's Monument, too.
Oh, absolutely. Alex is just going to cycle past a turn back. Yoel will attack for 2 here.
Vizier of Remedies is at its best in green-white decks that have, cards like Ornery Kudu, where you can just use them as 3/4s for just 3 mana. It's also very good when your opponent tries to use a Splendid Agony to target 2 of your creatures and then realizes that it didn't do anything. That has happened to me.
And then there's just the pause, like, oh, whoops. True Heart Duelist hits the table for Yoel. A handy little card that can do some pretty good blocking. Alex searched up his mountain there that we know he is splashing for Deem Worthy. Definitely a worthy card to splash for.
Absolutely.
And here's probably one of the hallmark cards of Alex's deck, Aven Wind Guide. Just fantastic in any kind of embalm strategy.
Yeah, one thing I've found to be funny about that is that one of those abilities, Flying and/or Vigilance, is usually redundant.
Yes. I have a question. Do you like Aven Wind Guide better in the blue-white embalm deck or Temet? Temet is the 2/2 that on the start of combat of your turn,
Temet.
+1/+1 unblockable.
Temet's like yeah. I think Aven Wind Guide is like fine.
Yeah.
You know, I kind of like view its power level similarly to Aven Initiate. But Temit's the realness. Look at that guy. He doesn't even need to wear a shirt. He's so confident.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's great art.
I like that. I like that, you know, the places of his body that he's chosen to cover, as opposed to it's kind of like opposite of what a lot of people might do.
He's just wearing a gold collar, you know?
Yeah.
Here we have a Ret Crop Spearmaster again from Alex. As noted, a pretty impressive Exert card.
Yeah, here we see the power of Exert. Ret Crop Spearmaster could, you know,
Easily attack through.
Yeah, it confidently attack into this board if it wanted to.
Yol, though, however, does have that Fan Bearer that can help out by tapping down. Here he's attacking with 3 of his creatures, notably holding up 2 mana. I smell an Impeccable Timing, potentially.
Yeah, and the nice thing about having a trick like Impeccable Timing here is that you're, in a lot of ways, bluffing that you don't have the trick because of the Fan Bearer, and
Right.
that 2 mana is, well,
That's true.
you know, here I have this 2 mana, this is just for my Fan Bearer, and then, you know, they might go for a pump spell of their own when you make a block, and if they do so, then you can get 2 cards for 1 card.
Yol is going to accept this trade, though, as the Spearmaster jumps in front of the Unwavering Initiate. Both have Embalm, so they will be coming back at some point in this game, if it goes long enough. Here you see Fanbear tapping down the Aven Wind Guide. Yol currently winning the damage race.
And you'll also very happy to get that trade with the Spearmaster because,
Oh, yes.
you know, his Unwavering Initiate has Embalm where, you know, he is the aggressor. And, you know, one thing that Alex is probably happy about here is that he has, you know, he's not facing off against Exert creatures that he can't block. He can actually play a trading game here.
So Yol's going to play maybe the best card in his deck, Curator of Mysteries, 4/4 flyer for 4. Haven't seen him cycle too terribly much in this game, but he did have that copy of Hieroglyphic Illumination. And here's the same thing that happened in the first game. We're going to see Compulsory Rest on that Curator. And the Aven Wind Guide's going to get in for 2.
Curator of Mysteries, a big creature. 4/4 flyer for 4. Nothing to scoff at.
Those are not stats you normally see costed like that. Oh, look at this. What I can only imagine may be sideboard tech. Forsake the Worldly is going to blow up Compulsory Rest potentially.
Why hath you
Oh,
forsaken
look at
me?
this. Look at this.
Yeah, so there's now Winds of Rebuke is bouncing the Compulsory Rest back to Alex's hand.
So you can just cast it again.
Yeah, gets to do it again. The nice thing here for Yol, though, is that he is going to be able to crack in for at least 4 right now.
He's considering now. He's got to think about it too, because we are in a racing situation. It looks like. All right, Curator will get in for 4, knocking Alex down to 10. There you see Winds of Rebuke. It also each player mills 2, by the way, when it's cast.
Yeah, neither player milled any Embalm cards here, or any split cards that they could cast from the graveyard, so not exceptionally relevant. The mill ability on Wings of Rebuke, though, a lot of different uses. I have seen people be milled to death by it.
Are you serious?
Yeah. It happened. I was on the receiving end of it.
I've seen people, namely myself,
Yeah.
be milled to death by Winds of Rebuke. Did they mill you any other time in the game, or was it just happenstance? You just
I was just drawing a bunch of cards. I was having a
Okay.
great time.
too great of a time, I think.
Yeah. Oh, thank you
Here
for showing
we
me an
go.
Oracle's Vault. I'll
Oracle's
take
Vault
that
from
anytime.
Yol Larson. He's going to show off the top card of his deck there. Can't pay for it, though. Goodbye. 1 brick counter on Oracle's Vault. Once he gets up to 3, he can play cards from the top of the library for free.
Yeah, and I mean, you can play them for their cost in the initial, activations, which is going to be relevant here.
Yes, it is.
And, we've seen game 1. These matchups are taking a little while. So I'm guessing that thing is going to get active. And, to deal with an artifact, Alex is going to need a very specific type of card, something like Forsake the Worldly or Cast Out, and you cannot let an Oracle's Vault just go off. Once that thing's active for a few turns, it's really hard to win the game.
Alex putting some pressure on here, attacking with 2 creatures. That's really interesting, too, because you did mention that Oracle's Vault was better positioned in Sealed than in Draft.
Mm-hmm.
So my question is, why would you be interested in including it in a deck with such cheap creatures like Yoles, when normally it will shine in like a blue-green deck that's trying to just, put big monsters out into the board?
The reason I like it so much in blue-green is because of how much mana you have. And oftentimes, like, after you play your big creatures, or even, while you're in the process of playing your big creatures, you have that excess mana to kind of dump into it. In this particular matchup, it is very, very good because it's slower. They're able to trade. They're not playing exert creatures. They're not playing a lot of first strikers. There are some exert creatures, but not a ton here. So these games are going to go longer, and while I don't think Oracle's Vault is going to shine in a lot of Yole's matchups today, I think in this particular matchup, it's going to be really, really good.
There we see it also got a land out of the way off the top of his deck that he probably didn't want to draw. Alex has got a big, beefy creature out on the board now in Cryptic Serpent, 6/5.
And you can use his Fanbearer to keep that at bay, but he is still going to be taking damage here. And Alex has an offensive force, whereas Yole is just taking his time and tapping things down with Fanbearer.
Yeah, that Sparring Mummy gets in for 3 as well.
Yule does have the mana to embalm his True Heart Duelist this turn while still tapping something down with Fanbearer. If he wanted to not tap something down with Fanbearer, then he could do the Anointer Priest. So this tells me that he has something.
Yeah. Somebody in chat was asking about Yole's ring. It's like kind of a scary looking skull ring.
Yeah.
Intimidate the opponent.
Yeah, I feel like, it's good to be yourself and to express yourself with, what you wear and your style and whatnot.
Yole definitely has style.
That. Oh, absolutely.
Oh, there's the trick. Impeccable timing takes down that Sparring Mummy. Meanwhile, just as you said, the Fanbearer keeping the Cryptic Serpent at bay. 3 damage target attacking or blocking creature. There, you see it on your screen. Follow-up play. Oh, boy, this is not what Yule wants to see. Vizier of Many Faces copying the Curator of Mysteries.
Yeah, and Yule does not have the necessary 2 mana to sacrifice that so that it wouldn't be an option.
Ooh, that's nice. Gideon's Intervention, not normally a card you see played in Draft. As I said, It is main decked. So he is going to say, prevent all damage that would be dealt to you and permanents you control by sources with the chosen name, choosing Curator of Mysteries?
Yeah. And, earlier I talked about how that card's not very good in an aggressive deck because, you're spending a card to deal with a threat of your opponent's, and then your opponent can then start using that card defensively, and you've essentially spent a card for nothing. However, when you're turning off one of your opponent's threats and you have an Oracle's Vault with 3 counters on it, that seems like it's pretty good.
Yep. Here, I believe Yule was asking the judges if he had to name the Vizier or the Sphinx.
What is this card? Tell me what it is.
Yeah, this is probably the question on the table. I'm personally not quite sure how that works.
It depends the exact wording on Vizier of Many Faces. If it retains its name, then he wouldn't be naming Vizier of Many Faces. But if it becomes an exact copy of the card,
yes, I believe it becomes a copy. Okay.
Then he would name Curator of Mysteries.
You saw earlier, Yule kind of looking through Alex's graveyard to see if he had any Embalm left in there to potentially cast on his turn. And yes, Yule, it's confirmed, did name Curator of Mysteries. Not enough mana to tap down the Serpent this turn, so it's going to get in.
And now Yol, he's getting a dangerously low life total here.
Yeah, dropping to 4.
Yeah, and with that Avon Wing guy on the other side of the board, he's going to need, pretty specific types of answers in order to stay in the game, because even after he's able to, trade or block in some fashion, then he still is. Ooh.
Gust Walker.
Yeah.
The little 2-2 that could. All right, Yol's at 3 brick counters now, but may potentially be too little too late if he can't find a way to deal with both the Serpent and the Gust Walker.
Yeah, and with the amount of lands Yol has in play right now, he's essentially at 6 because of the compulsory rest.
Yes.
On his Curator of Mysteries. But he needs to find a way back into this game, and he's going to have to get some permanence on the board right now. His only option is to sink 2 mana to the Fanbearer to tap down the River Serpent, and that's just not good enough to survive.
He has 3 cards in hand currently, maybe thinking about embalming here.
Yeah, the one nice part about embalming here is that if he does embalm the True Heart Duelist, he can use that as a chump blocker for both the Mummy and the Serpent, and then he could use the Fanbearer to tap down the Avon Initiate, at which point he really, the only threatening thing happening to him is an exerted Gustwalker, which could put him to 1 or 3, depending on whether or not he sacrifices his Curator to the compulsory rest.
Yeah, it seems this is what it feels like. There's just one
Sorry,
too
that was a
many things.
mouthful. Yeah.
One too many things for Yol to deal with over there on Alex's side of the battlefield.
Yeah, this has been a really good game. I mean, it's been back and forth. Yol, unfortunately, drew a lot more lands than Alex. A lot of the time we talk about, how important it is to draw a good ratio of land to spells. And, you can correct that ratio with cards like Naga Oracle and whatnot. But here Yol has, seen a lot more lands than Alex has. And, kind of needs to fight his way back into the game. And while he's recouping card advantage with embalm creatures, it just might be too little too late at this point.
There we see True Heart Duelist coming back from the dead.
And that is going to be enough for Yol to survive for 1 turn, but the other thing is Alex is drawing off the top, so.
Ooh. Here we have a Sacred Excavation. He's going to be able to get back 2 cards with cycling from his graveyard. He's getting back a River Serpent and a Jeru's Resolve.
A bit of a questionable card.
The Resolve?
The Sacred Excavation.
Oh.
Yeah. Alex, probably not too thrilled that one made the cut here.
I'm not quite sure how many cycling cards he has in his deck, but you probably need a critical mass to play this.
Oh, it does look like he sideboarded it in, for what it's worth. So
okay.
he knew this matchup was going to go longer. He wanted to use it simply as a card advantage spell, like a Hieroglyphic Illumination, if you will, a draw 2. In which case, it's very reasonable, because if a game is going to go longer, spending 4 mana to draw 2 cards is very reasonable.
10 minutes remaining in registration for our 12:30 events. At 12:30, we have
Yol here deciding what to tap down with that Fanbearer.
giant sealed event of the weekend. If you want
I imagine it's going to be the
Haven Wind Guide.
yeah.
Oh,
please come see us.
finally settling on the Cryptic Serpent.
Ah, okay, interesting.
It's tough, too, because if Yol was planning on potentially using his second copy of some kind of trick, like Impeccable Timing,
Ooh.
in this case, it's a Mighty Leap.
Now, this is really interesting because not only is Yol going to be able to block 2 things here, but he's also going to be able to kill the 1 flyer. And, he kind of tricked Alex into, not that Alex would have attacked differently otherwise, but, he kind of was like, do I want to tap this River Serpent? Do I want to tap the Wind Guide? And, gave Alex the impression that there was not a Mighty Leap at the ready, when there was.
That's so cool. Hey, a little bit of
I like
bluffing
mind
action.
games. Yeah.
you know?
Look at Alex there. He's like, oh, man, he's in my head. This is crazy.
And
But he still
giving
feels like
+2/+2 and flying to a True Heart Duelist is especially relevant because he can block 2 creatures.
Yeah.
So that is exiled now. Won't be coming back for a third time. All right, we've got 3 brick counters on the Oracle's Vault. See if we hit anything good here. Spin the wheel. Oh, another plains. Can't quite see what Yol is holding in his hand, but something like a Floodwaters, which we do know he has in his deck, would be another way to save him, as he is currently at 2 life.
Yeah, this Oracle's Vault has already netted him 4 cards, so it's done a lot of good work in this game. But fortunately, a lot of those cards were lands. Interestingly enough, I think Alex declined. Did he still have the Jarus resolve?
Yes, he did.
So
He
he did not save the Gustwalker that had been.
Here we have a Naga Oracle for Yol.
Oh, I'm surprised he didn't use that before tapping the Oracle's Vault. He could have dictated what he was going to put in play with that card.
Sometimes you just like to be surprised, JVL.
Yeah, I guess that's true. You want the sweat of it all.
Yeah, it looks like he's got a couple of Embalm cards in his hand as well. I saw definitely an Unwavering Initiate in there, but he's just going to put them both back on top after putting the island into his graveyard. Passes a turn back. Alex is going to cycle that River Serpent.
And in doing so, he's able to scry 1 thanks to Zero Many Faces having copied the Curator of Mysteries.
Nice.
It's a pretty good card.
Oh, yes. I played a draft with Vizier of Many Faces. It's great because people are like, what? That's 4 mana? And it's Embalm for just 1 more? That can't be right. Oh, it's right. All right, there. Yol extends the hand. He has seen enough there from Alexander Hayne. Hayne takes the match 2-0. That was kind of cool. Like, we got a drawn-out match between blue-white.
We also got to see some interesting sideboarding choices there. Sacred Excavation, a card that a lot of people wouldn't think to have played with. Alex recognized the pace of the matchup and decided that was going to be a relevant card to bring in, and it was very powerful there. Yol, again, recognizing the pace of the matchup, really decided to go all in on that Oracle's Vault, and, at the top of his library, been a little bit kinder to him. That could have worked out really well in his favor. So we got to see some really interesting stuff in that matchup, and Alex, able to get there eventually with a River Serpent,
Cryptic Serpent.
Cryptic Serpent.
You know what's interesting to me is that Brad Nelson once told me that sideboarding is the #1 way to get better at your standard game. But I think being a skilled sideboarder is so important in limited as well, and it's a level up moment when you realize what kind of small incremental decisions you can make to impact the overall way the game plays out.
Absolutely, yeah.
Main event player, Austin
So.
Gattuso.
All right, it seems like all of our matches in the feature match have completed, so we'll be back after this brief break.